On the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went. Oh, hey there! I was just reading my Bible about when Jesus rose from the dead. It's a pretty amazing story. You know, before Jesus died, he told his disciples that he was going to suffer and die, but that he would be raised back to life on the third day. Now, if someone told you that they could come alive again after they died, that'd be pretty hard to believe. The disciples, too, had a hard time understanding and believing that Jesus would come back to life. Well, 3 days after Jesus died on the cross, Mary went to visit the tomb where his body was laid. It's kind of like going to a cemetery to visit the grave of someone that you loved. Well, back in those days, people who had died were placed inside of a tomb. It kind of looked like a cave, and a huge rock was put in front of it to close it up. When Mary arrived at the tomb, she saw that large stone was rolled away and the door to the tomb was wide open. Can you imagine how Mary must have felt? You know what she did? She ran and she got Peter and John and she told them what happened. Well, they immediately ran back to see it for themselves. Now, in those days, when someone died, their bodies were wrapped in a cloth. When Peter and John looked inside the tomb, they were shocked because they saw that cloth that Jesus had been wrapped in. It was on the floor and Jesus wasn't there. You see, even though Jesus had been telling his disciples that he would be raised from the dead, Peter and John still didn't understand. They left the tomb that day and they went home very confused. Here's the cool part. John chapter 20, verse 19 says, "On the evening of the first day of the week, when the disciples were together, they had the doors locked because they were scared of the Jewish leaders. Jesus came and stood among them and said, 'Peace be with you.'" Can you imagine the shock that those disciples must have felt? I mean, the last time that they saw Jesus, he was hanging on a cross and had died. So when the disciples saw him, they couldn't believe their eyes. Jesus was alive. Wow. How do you think you would have felt? Maybe excited or scared? Probably very confused. I'm sure that they felt all of those things. But wait, there's more. You see, when Jesus was placed on the cross, the soldiers had hammered nails through his hands into the wooden cross. They also took a really sharp spear and they stuck it in Jesus' side. Well, now that Jesus had risen from the dead and appeared to the disciples, he proved that it was really him by showing them the scars in his hands and in his side. Jesus really was alive again. Well, once the disciples figured out that it really was Jesus in front of them, they were super happy. They began to understand everything that Jesus had been telling them. He really is the Son of God. And as exciting as it was for everyone to see that he was alive, Jesus really wanted them to believe that he was alive before they ever saw him. One of his followers was named Thomas, and Thomas said he's not going to believe it until he sees it. So Jesus also showed Thomas the scars in his hands and his side. But Jesus had something very interesting to say in John chapter 20, verse 29. Jesus told him, "Because you've seen me, you believe, but blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." So who did Jesus say would be blessed? Those who have not seen and yet have believed. That's us. We've not physically seen him, but we still believe that Jesus is alive. And it's because he is alive that we can live forever with him. Because he died and forgave us of our sins, we get to be his children forever. Jesus is alive.